An incredible heartwarming discovery. CEO reveals hidden life-changing story behind sleeping Jan in a small Midwestern town, nestled between rustling oak trees and the smells of home-cooked meals. Jan's story was about to unravel. For nearly 20 years, she had a smile that could melt the coldest winter day, serving coffee and warm plates to the regulars at the diner. Day after day, Jan filled each cup with care, knowing the names and stories of everyone who walked through the door. She was the backbone of her community, raising her 2 kids as a single mother while caring for her aging parents next door. But beneath that warm exterior lay years of sacrifices and silent struggle. Just a few blocks away, Mark, the town's successful CEO, returned home for a family funeral, carrying the weight of old wounds. After his father's passing, guilt washed over him. What had he been doing with his life? It was during this time of reflection, he stumbled across a forgotten article highlighting Jan's tireless fight to save the diner from closure years ago. The headline struck him like a bolt of lightning: "Local heroine rallies community to save the heart of town." Tears sprung to his eyes as he read her story, a testimony to hope, strength, and community. Mark couldn't believe he had overlooked someone like January. How could a man with the world at his fingertips fail to acknowledge the woman whose tenacity had kept the town alive? The article described how she stood up at town meetings, her hands shaking but her voice steady, rallying the townspeople, igniting their spirits when hope seemed lost. Life swirled around her while she faced her own struggles, a single mother juggling every ball life threw her way. The weight of this realization crushed Mark's heart, yet sparked a fervent desire in him to right this oversight. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. At the next town meeting, tensions crackled in the air. Mark took the floor, his heart racing like a freight train. He began speaking about Jan, revealing her past heroism, her tireless work, her love for their town. The crowd shifted in their seats, eyes wide, whispers fluttering through the room. Jan sat quietly, a blush creeping up her cheeks as every eye turned toward her. She felt a wave of pride mixed with embarrassment. All she had ever wanted was to help her community. But then, just as hope began to swell, a dark cloud loomed overhead. A threatened closure of the diner, once more, flooded the room with turmoil. Desperate murmurs echoed off the walls, turning what could have been a moment for Jan into a debate about who really mattered in their community. Mark looked around, absorbed in the gravity of the moment, thinking about the impact they could have collectively. How could they honor Jan? How could they not only celebrate her spirit but also protect what she built? The answers hung in the air like unvoiced questions, and the room crackled with potential. More than ever, change was needed, and it could start with them. Would this be the moment that unites everyone, or would it slip away once more? Mark took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. This was more than just about Jan or the diner. It was about community, a thread that wove them all together. He could feel the weight of their eyes, their unspoken fears echoing in the silence. Then, he caught a glimpse of Jan, her hopeful yet anxious demeanor urging him forward. "Friends," he began, his voice steady yet passionate, "we're gathered here today because we can't let fear dictate our future. Jan didn't just save this diner, she saved a part of us. Every time you've walked through those doors, she's filled your hearts as much as your stomachs." A low murmur of agreement rose among the crowd. A woman in the back shouted, "But how do we even start?" Her voice trembled, raw with worry. Other murmurs of uncertainty rippled through the room. Mark leaned into the question, flipping the atmosphere from fearful to hopeful. "We start together. Right here. Right now," he replied, his heart pounding with purpose. "Let us form a community task force, people from all walks of life working shoulder to shoulder to not just save Jan's diner but to revitalize our entire town." We have the power to make a difference. The room began to buzz. People leaned in, eager and hopeful, feeding off their collective spirit. Jan's eyes shone with disbelief, the embarrassment giving way to a spark of excitement. She had always dreamed of uniting her town, but she never imagined it could happen like this. "I'll help," she blurted out, her voice cutting through the noise, firm but filled with emotion. "If we can come together like you say, we can save not only the diner but each other." The crowd erupted into applause, their spirits lifted by the possibility of action. Mark felt a swell of pride as he watched the connection forming, a chain reaction of hope igniting in hearts that had almost given up. But just as laughter and chatter began replacing the initial tension, the door swung open, and a figure stepped inside the mayor. His presence instantly silenced the room. With a stern expression, he surveyed everyone, and the atmosphere shifted once again. "Let us not get ahead of ourselves," the mayor said, his tone authoritative. "We have regulations, budgets, and a lot of red tape when it comes to funding. There are legalities at play." Whispers of discontent rippled through the crowd, their newfound excitement dampened by the reality of bureaucracy. Mark exchanged a quick look with Jan, her face a mixture of determination and frustration. They could feel the energy shift, their moment of unity hanging by a thread. "Sir," Mark called out, cutting through the tense air. "What if we create a plan that includes those regulations? We can show the town, and neighboring towns, the impact of investing in people. Let us not just defend against closure, let us build something sustainable." The mayor regarded Mark with a raised eyebrow. "It'll take more than simple enthusiasm, CEO. Can you guarantee results?" Silence filled the room again, but it was different now, attention filled with potential, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Mark's mind raced. He could feel the pulse of possibility beating, stronger than the fear of failure. "I believe in this town. I believe in us. We can do this together if you all stand with me." The crowd erupted into cheers, voices ringing with determination again. Mark's heart swelled. Even amidst the uncertainty, he saw a commitment forming, a pledge to act, to overcome challenges side by side. But just as hope began to fill the room like the scent of freshly brewed coffee, a deep voice from the back cut through the energy. "You talk big, but do you really know what it means to struggle?" All eyes turned to see a man standing defiantly, arms crossed and skepticism etched on his face. Mark knew they were standing at a crossroads. Everything could hinge on how they answered that challenge. Would he prove his worth and earn the trust needed to fuel this movement? With renewed determination, Mark stepped forward, ready to face the doubt head-on. A single thought flickered in his mind: this was just the beginning. Mark took a step closer, his heart racing. The weight of the room was palpable, and he could feel the eyes of his neighbors boring into him. He knew this was a moment of truth, a chance to not just respond, but to connect. "Listen, I get it," he said, gesturing towards the man with crossed arms. "I've faced my share of struggles too. We all have. But that's exactly why we can't shy away from taking action. Fear only kills our dreams and hopes. We need to confront our struggles together." The man raised an eyebrow, a flicker of interest breaking through his stubborn exterior. Mark seized the moment. He needed to share more than just his words, he needed to share a piece of himself to bridge the gap. "Just a few years back, I was in a dark place. My own business was on the brink of collapse. I didn't know what to do. I felt lost and alone. It was the support of my community that pulled me through." He gestured around the room, drawing everyone in. "People like you helped me rebuild my life. And now, standing here, I want to give that same support back. I want to help us all rise together." A hush fell over the crowd. No one had expected such vulnerability. The man in the back uncrossed his arms, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. Mark pressed on, feeling the momentum shift. "This isn't just about saving a diner. It's about saving the spirit of our community. We owe it to ourselves and each other." If we don't stand up now, what will become of us? The words sank in like stones dropped into a pond, causing ripples of emotion. Mark could see heads nodding, brows furrowing in thought. There in the room, a quiet understanding began to take root. Then, something remarkable happened. A woman from the crowd stood up. "I've lived here my entire life," she said, her voice trembling with sincerity. "I watched this community thrive, and then I watched it crumble. But I'm not ready to give up. Jan's Diner has always been more than just a place to eat, it's been home, family." Her words struck a chord. More voices began to rise, each adding their stories, their hopes. One after another, they shared reasons why they needed the diner and what it meant to them. The room transformed from a battleground of doubt into a chorus of shared memories and dreams. Mark's heart soared. This was it. This was the turning point. If we come together, we can draft a plan to show the mayor how much this diner and our community means to all of us. Let us create a proposal with everyone's voice included. Let us show him our strength. Cheers erupted again. Jan stood at his side, her eyes glistening with tears of pride and gratitude. They were building something, a movement fueled by a shared vision. But just as the energy hit a peak, the mayor cleared his throat, cutting through the wave of emotion. "I understand the sentiment, but you'll need more than words on paper. You'll need support and funding. Are you prepared for that?" Mark glanced around the room, a flicker of doubt darting through him. Had they truly come this far to encounter another hurdle? Yet inside, he felt the same pulse of community urging him on. They wouldn't back down now. "Absolutely, Mayor. This community is ready to invest in its future. We will show you that what we're fighting for is worth every effort." The reply surged out of him, firm yet hopeful. The crowd roared with renewed enthusiasm. However, deep within Mark's gut, a tiny seed of worry planted itself. Was he truly ready to lead this charge? As the clamor continued around him, he knew the real battle was just beginning. They had ignited a fire, but could they manage the flames? With the mayor's skeptical gaze still heavy on him, Mark felt the challenge intensify. Would they rally in unity and draw the support needed? Or would self-doubt unravel their budding revolution? As the crowd continued to cheer, a nagging uncertainty clung to him. He took a deep breath, ready to step into the spotlight once more. Was this the moment where they'd either rise together or fall apart? As the cheers echoed around him, Mark felt the warmth of the crowd envelop him. Yet, beneath that surface, doubt gnawed at him. Did they really have what it took? Could they turn this emotional spark into real results? Taking a moment to gather his thoughts, he scanned the faces in the crowd. Determination, hope, and a flicker of disbelief. "All right, everyone," Mark called out, his voice gaining strength with each word. "I need your help to build a real plan. We need to show our mayor and the city officials what Jan's Diner represents to us all. Let us start by forming groups to tackle different aspects. We can create a financial strategy, develop community events, and draft a proposal that resonates with every voice that speaks for us today." The room buzzed with energy as people began to exchange ideas. Some jumped up, forming small circles to discuss. Others pulled out scraps of paper and pens, jotting down everything from fundraising ideas to passionate testimonials. Mark felt his heart lift. This was the unity he had hoped for. It wasn't just about saving a diner now, it was about rebuilding everything that made their community whole. He joined a nearby group, where a couple of young adults were fervently discussing potential new items to add to the diner menu that reflected local traditions. "Why not put together a community recipe book?" one of them suggested. "We could sell it, with proceeds going directly to keeping the diner open." "That's an awesome idea," Mark exclaimed, quickly jotting it down. The more they discussed, the more he felt the doubts recede, replaced by the undeniable rhythm of collaboration. As groups began to form, they appointed leaders, set responsibilities, and decided when and how they would meet again. Mark stepped back for a moment to survey the scene. Laughter, excitement, and sheer joy bubbled in the air, each moment fueled by a goal that was finally within grasp. But then, just as he started to relax, the mayor's voice broke through again. "This sounds promising, but you won't get support without solid proposals. You need facts and numbers, selling points. I want to see real commitment." The energy hesitated, a shadow creeping back into the room. Mark noticed the worry on Jan's face as she stood in a circle, biting her lip. For a heartbeat, panic flared in his chest. What if they couldn't deliver that commitment? He took a step forward, wanting to reassure everyone. "Let us focus. We've got the passion to back this up. If we're going to show the mayor we need his help, we're going to need to put in the hard work. From today, we're not just dreamers, we're doers." Encouragement rippled through the crowd again, but Mark knew the road ahead would demand more than just passion. It would require sacrifice, midnight brainstorming sessions, and meticulous planning. Could they all commit to that? As they reorganized into new groups with renewed purpose, Mark heard Jan call out, "Let us meet here again tomorrow at 6. We can tackle our action plan and touch on finance. Tomorrow at 6 it is." Mark replied, the thrill of adrenaline coursing through him again as the crowd cheered and dispersed into smaller groups. As he stood there, he felt pride swell within him. Yet another sense of foreboding flickered in the backdrop of his mind. He knew challenges would come not just from outside forces, but from within the team itself. Could he inspire everyone to keep their promises, their trust? Or would they falter as reality confronted their dreams? With a heart determined but uncertain, Mark could almost hear the ticking of time, reminding him that tomorrow would come quickly. The stakes were high, and failure was not an option. What would they uncover when they met again? Would the fire they sparked together survive the night? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the town, Mark made his way home. The excitement from the meeting still buzzed in his veins, but the weight of the expectations pressed heavily on his shoulders. It wasn't just about the diner, it was about hope, a fragile thing that could slip away if not nurtured. He stepped into his small apartment, the familiar scent of coffee lingered in the air. He poured himself a cup and sank into his worn-out sofa, the fabric soft and familiar against his skin. He stared out of the window, watching the world outside slow down as evening settled in. What if they couldn't pull this off? What if their efforts fell flat? He shook his head, trying to dispel the dark thoughts spiraling in his mind. Images of the community rushed through his thoughts, families laughing together at Jan's, the smell of fresh pastries wafting through the air, and elderly couples reminiscing over decades of shared meals. These memories were their lifeblood, a part of what made their town special. Suddenly, the loud ring of his phone broke the silence, startling him. It was January. His heart raced as he answered. "Hey, Jan. Everything all right?" "Mark, I've been thinking we need to do more than just a proposal. We need to remind people why they love this place." Her voice was tinged with urgency, a mixture of hope and fear. "I know what you mean. We need to stir something in people's hearts." His pulse quickened. "Let us gather stories from customers, something that captures the soul of the diner. Real experiences, real voices." "Exactly." Jan's enthusiasm crackled through the phone. "We need to show the mayor that Jan's isn't just a diner, it's a lifeline in this community. We're going to need photographs, memories, maybe even testimonials." Mark nodded, as if she could see him. "A campaign." "Yes. We can use social media to spread the word. People can share their stories. We should get some local artists involved too, maybe have a photo wall at the diner to showcase what it means to others." "There you go. We need to make a real visual impact," she said, her excitement contagious. As they brainstormed together, Mark felt a spark ignite within him. Each idea flourished, turning into plans. He scribbled notes, every suggestion a link in a chain of hope. They spoke late into the night, filled with possibilities and laughter, building a wave of momentum that carried them forward. When they finally hung up, Mark felt a renewed sense of purpose. He understood now that they weren't just fighting for the diner, they were reclaiming their identity, their unity as a community. They could do this. The night passed quickly, filled with the sounds of typing and the clicking of keys as he compiled a list of stories, ideas, and visual elements they could share. This time, he would not let doubt creep in. Every word he typed bolstered his resolve, each story a reminder of their mission. As dawn broke and light filled his apartment, Mark felt ready. He had a plan and a vision, but even more importantly, he had a team that was willing to fight for something larger than themselves. He arrived at Jan's diner early, the familiar sign welcoming him like an old friend. As he walked through the door, a sense of belonging washed over him. It was time to gather everyone, to ignite that flame and keep it burning bright. But as chairs scraped against the tiles and voices filled the room, Mark noticed a few familiar faces were missing. Concern rippled through him. Would everyone show up? Were they all in this together? The question hung heavy in the air, waiting to be answered. Would Mark's vision pull the community closer, or would cracks begin to show under pressure? Mark's heart raced as he stood in the center of the diner, greeted by the vibrant sounds of chatter and laughter. But that nagging worry clenched at him like a fist around his chest. Where were the faces of Mr. Peterson, the old mechanic, and Betty, the artist whose sketches adorned the walls of Jan's? They were part of the heartbeat of this diner. Without them, something felt off, hollow even. He cleared his throat, trying to rally himself. All right, everyone. His voice echoed against the walls, pulling attention like a string. I'm so glad to see you all here. We're gearing up for something big. Jan nodded from behind the counter, her apron dusted with flour, a picture of determination. We want to launch a campaign that not only shows how special this diner is but reminds everyone why Jan's is the heart of our community. As he spoke, Mark watched the faces of the people gathered. Some were eager, leaning forward, others, like Judith, fidgeted with her hands, apprehension shadowing her expression. We're going to gather stories, photographs, he continued, and we want everyone to be a part of it. We need your voices to remind us and the town what Jan's means to us. A murmur of agreement wove through the crowd, but Mark still felt that weight of absence, the worry tugging at his thoughts. Would Betty and Mr. Peterson step up and share their stories? Just then, a familiar face appeared at the door. Little Mary, her ponytail bobbing energetically as she rushed inside. I'm here, she announced, her innocence bubbling over. I brought a photo of me and Grandpa eating pie here last summer. Joy lit up Mark's heart. He knelt down to her level, catching the enthusiasm glowing in her eyes. That's perfect, Mary. Stories like that will help us so much. As she shared her memory, the diner transformed into a canvas awash with nostalgia. Other customers began sharing tales, laughter mingling with tears. They spoke of birthdays celebrated, weddings announced over coffee, and friendships forged at the counter. Each story was a thread weaving together their experiences, creating a rich tapestry of community connection. Yet, as the reminiscence deepened, he noticed some of the familiar faces still absent, shadows where bright stories had once blossomed. The excitement of others couldn't erase the silence of those missing. Mark bit his lip, wondering what kept them away. Were they not interested, or was something deeper holding them back? Just as he prepared to address the concern, the bell over the door jangled again. This time, it was Mr. Peterson, visibly frazzled, as if he'd jogged here from his shop. Sorry, Mark. Work's been crazy. Didn't he want to miss this though? The relief washed over him like a warm wave. Do you have a story for us, Mr. Peterson? Mark grinned, urging him onto the stage of their gathering. As he began talking about the late-night repairs done with the jukebox barely humming and sharing a meal with friends, more people drifted in one after another, like pieces of a puzzle assembling. The room filled with laughter, and the warmth wrapped around Mark like a comforting blanket. But even in the midst of joy, a lingering question gripped him: what about those still hiding in the shadows? Could he coax them out, shine a light on their stories too? As night fell, painting the sky deep blue, Mark felt the first tendrils of doubt return. Could they truly unite everyone? Would their efforts matter if the story of Jan S. left some voices unheard? With that thought weighing heavily on his heart, he began to strategize how to reach out to those who hadn't come forward. He needed to break through whatever had kept them away. The spark of determination ignited anew as he left the diner that night, the warmth of community still alive in him. But the question loomed, were there deeper issues at play, silencing the very voices he wished to celebrate? Mark walked home under the velvet night sky, the chill in the air nipping at his cheeks. The warmth of the diner lingered in his memory, but the absence of specific neighbors gnawed at him, an itch he couldn't scratch. Were they upset with him, or was it something else, a paralytic sadness, a fear that tied them to their homes? As he strolled down the streets lined with familiar houses, he spotted Betty's art studio, its windows dim but the door ever ajar. The faint scent of turpentine wafted over him, drawing him in. Maybe she was in there, working on something new. He hesitated at the entrance, unsure if he should disturb her creative solitude. But then something inside him urged, "You have to try. Betty." He called softly as he stepped inside. The space was cluttered with canvases, paint tubes, and scattered brushes, but it felt eerily quiet. A low voice responded, "In here." Mark followed the sound into the back room where Betty sat, her easel facing the wall, as if shielding her work from prying eyes. "Hi, I just wanted to check in. We missed you at Jan S. tonight." He approached her, noting the slight furrow in her brow. I didn't feel like coming, Mark," she replied, her voice drifting like the paint strokes on her canvas. "I've been stuck in my head lately." "What do you mean?" He took a step closer, sensing layers of unshakable burden stacked high within her. She exhaled, pushing a strand of hair back behind her ear. "It's hard to explain. Life it's thrown a few too many hammers my way. Some days, I just can't gather the strength." Mark's heart twisted at her words. "But you're part of Jan S., Betty. You bring so much light with your art." He cleared his throat, striving to be the friend she needed. "Your stories matter. You matter." Silence enveloped them as she studied the floor, her emotions hanging heavy in the air. "I used to believe that. But what do I have to show now? All I see is a messy canvas full of mistakes." "Every masterpiece starts as a rough draft," Mark encouraged, an idea sparking in his mind. "What if we celebrated those mistakes? What if we shared them as part of your story?" Betty's eyes flickered with intrigue. "You really think people want to hear about my failures?" "Absolutely. Your journey is just as important as any success," he reassured her. "You can inspire people who feel the same way. You can remind them they're not alone." She looked up, the corners of her lips turning up hesitantly. "Maybe," Mark pressed on, excitement bubbling inside him. "Let us work together. I'll gather stories from everyone at Jan S., and you can show how they've connected through your art. You might find that everyone has felt like they're failing at one point or another." The light in Betty's eyes seemed to return a little, and Mark felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere. "Okay," she finally said, a cautious smile appearing. "I'd like to try that." As they talked and planned, a knock echoed through the studio. It startled them both, and they turned to the door. To their surprise, it opened, revealing Mr. Peterson, his sheepish grin belying his usual positivity. "I know it's late, but I overheard you too. Can I share my own story?" Mark beamed, feeling the stirrings of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of something that could bridge the gaps, pulling those hidden voices out into the light. "Of course," he exclaimed. "We'd love that, Mr. Peterson." As he watched his neighbor step inside, eager to share, Mark felt a surge of optimism. Maybe they were turning a corner, healing some of the rifts in their community. Together, they could rewrite the narrative of Jan S. Diner. But as the clock ticked past midnight, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that some stories would be harder to reveal than others. What about those whose wounds ran deeper than simple troubles? How long would it take to unearth the pain hidden behind silence? The answer lay ahead, he could feel it. And as they sat together beneath the warm glow of a single lamp, he knew they were choosing connection over isolation. Would others join them, or would fear still hold them back? Mr. Peterson stepped into the room, his breath catching slightly as he took in the vibrant chaos surrounding him. He shuffled his feet, his usual confidence ebbing away. I've only shared this with my wife, and, well, she has been gone a few years now. He took a deep breath, drawing strength from the warm light encircling them. Mark nodded, his heart racing. They were about to unveil something deeply personal. Whenever you're ready, he encouraged. Thank you, Mr. Peterson sighed, settling into a nearby chair. The leather creaked under his weight. He looked down, then lifted his gaze with a glimmer of determination. You see, I lost my job a while back. Just before my wife passed. I was the breadwinner, the one who kept everything together, and when the company downsized, it felt like the floor fell away beneath me. That must have been incredibly tough, Betty replied softly, crossing her arms as if protecting herself from the memory. Mr. Peterson nodded, emotions swirling in his eyes. I didn't want to rely on anyone, especially after losing her. So I kept it hidden, pretending to the world that everything was okay. I'd show up to the diner and laugh with the patrons, but inside, I felt like I was crumbling. Mark felt like he had been punched in the gut. But you're still here, he said after a moment, hoping to pull meaning from the darkness. Yeah, but only because I found a way to channel my pain. Mr. Peterson's eyes sparkled with a hint of pride. I started volunteering at a local shelter. It didn't help my financial situation, but it filled a hole I didn't know existed. Listening to others, sharing struggles, it helped me find my voice again. As he spoke, Mark realized something. Mr. Peterson's vulnerability was sharing a shared experience. Feelings of alienation, grief, and resilience ebbed into that small space. Betty leaned forward, captivated. Your story can help others see they're not alone in their struggles either, she said gently, her voice barely above a whisper. So many people feel like they need to hide their pain. A flicker of light danced in Mr. Peterson's eyes. That's what I hope, he replied. Maybe I can channel my story into something more, maybe a piece of art or a community event. That's the spirit, Mark almost shouted, his feelings bubbling over. Imagine how many people you might uplift when they see they're not the only ones facing challenges. And just like that, a thread of hope intertwined itself tightly between them, stitching their hearts and souls closer. But then came a soft knock at the door again, this time more urgent. The three turned, an electric current of anticipation crackling through the air. What now? Betty asked, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. As Mark opened the door, he was met with the determined face of Sarah, their young neighbor, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I need to talk to you all. I can't hold my story back any longer, she stammered, her voice trembling. The air thickened with possibility. Who knew what pain Sarah had been carrying? What she might reveal would shake their world further, setting off waves none of them anticipated. Please, come in, Mark urged, his heart racing again. How many stories were left to be shared? Was the flood just beginning? He took a deep breath, ready for the next revelation, feeling grateful yet terrified. What if the truth was more than they could bear? Sarah stepped inside, the air filled with her palpable urgency. She clutched a worn backpack like a lifeline, her fingers trembling. They watched her, a collective stillness looming in the room as she caught her breath. I thought I was alone, she started, her voice steadying just a fraction. But I need to tell you what I've been going through. Mark and Betty exchanged glances. They felt the weight of her words, knowing that whatever followed would tip the balance of their shared vulnerability even further. Just a few months ago, Sarah continued, her gaze dropping, I lost my dad. Completely out of the blue. We were planning a family dinner, and then he was just gone. A ripple of grief washed over the group. Mr. Peterson leaned forward, his heart heavy with the weight of loss shared. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," he said softly, his voice laced with compassion. She readied herself as if her story were a marionette she was finally releasing. "He was my anchor. I relied on him for everything. After he died, I felt lost, like I was just drifting. I stopped going to school. I didn't leave the house for weeks." Mark felt her pain like a punch in the gut, remembering the silence in his own home after the loss of loved ones. He wanted to reach out, to grip her hand and anchor her in the moment, but he held back. This was her moment. "I had friends, but I pushed them all away. I thought nobody could understand," Sarah continued, her voice wavering. "It wasn't until I found an old notebook of his in the attic that things began to change." She paused, taking a deep breath, her eyes glistening. "What was in it?" Betty asked gently, her voice breaking the silence as she leaned in, intrigued. "It was full of his thoughts, memories, and dreams. The last entry was about living your truth, no matter how hard it gets. It hit me so hard. I didn't want to let his memory fade in these shadows I'd built around me." Mr. Peterson nodded, a knowing smile beginning to form on his lips. "That's a powerful realization. Our loved ones wouldn't want us to suffer alone or stay trapped. They'd want us to live fully." Sarah's eyes shone with tears, but she stood taller now. "I decided to share my story. I started a club at school where people can come, talk, and just be real. It's small, but we're growing. Everyone's starting to tell their own stories." Mark felt pride swelling in his chest. Here was Sarah, a young girl transforming her pain into a bridge for others. It was breathtaking. "But it hasn't been easy," she added, her voice dropping. "I'm scared a lot. What if I can't keep it going? What if people don't care?" Betty leaned closer, her brow furrowing with concern and understanding. "It's okay to be scared, Sarah. But sharing your truth, this is what it's all about. You're already making a difference." There was a silence as the gravity of their connection settled around them. Each of them held pieces of raw pain, yet, together, they sparked a sense of hope. "Can I invite you all to one of our meetings?" Sarah asked, finally looking up. "I think it would mean a lot to the group to hear your stories." Mark felt a rush of warmth. "Absolutely," he said immediately. "We'd love to support you, Sarah." As they made plans, the room pulsed with a new energy, the collective strength of shared experiences swirling into something transformative. But as Sarah prepared to leave, she hesitated, a flicker of conflict in her eyes. "There's something else too," she said slowly, glancing at each of them. "Something I haven't told anyone." She took a deep breath, preparing them for another revelation that pulsed with tension and possibility. What could be hiding behind her hesitation? What more could this journey of sharing unearth? "Sarah, you can share anything here," Mark urged gently, his heart racing as he sensed what lay beneath her unease. The air crackled with anticipation. She nodded, stepping a little closer, her voice low. "I've been dealing with my mom. After Dad passed, everything changed," she said, tears shimmering in her eyes. "She just shut down. She barely leaves her room anymore, and I'm terrified of losing her too." Mr. Peterson leaned forward, his own pain reflecting in his gaze. "Have you talked to her about how you feel?" Sarah shrugged, the weight of many moments heavy on her shoulders. "I tried, but she's always blocked me out. I feel like I'm losing my whole family." Mark felt a familiar knot twist in his stomach. He leaned forward, wanting desperately to comfort her. "You're not alone in this. Grief can be suffocating, and it's hard for everyone involved. Have you thought about how it might feel for her too? Maybe she needs support just as much as you do." That light flickered in Sarah's eyes again. "I guess I hadn't thought of it that way." I wanted to scream, to shake her back into reality, but maybe she's just hurting. "Exactly," Betty chimed in. Sometimes, we all just need someone to understand our pain. It sounds like you're both feeling lost in your separate worlds. As they spoke, Mark felt the atmosphere shift. With Sarah opening her heart, her vulnerability was bringing a whole new dimension to the discussion. What if we organized something, a community gathering, a way for everyone to come together and share their grief? Not just for you, but for anyone feeling that way, Mark proposed, feeling the weight of inspiration grow between them. Sarah blinked, hope flooding her expression as her heart began to see the possibilities. You think people would come? Absolutely, Mark asserted, his voice steady. I bet you'd be surprised at how many people carry the same burden but feel too isolated to speak. Let us reach out to the community, promote it through Jan S, maybe offer a special meal during the gathering to celebrate our stories, Betty added, her artistic mind racing with new visions. We can use your father's memory and draw everyone together in a way that fosters healing. The strength of Sarah's pain began to weave into a fabric of potential healing, not only for herself but for the entire community. Mark could see it, the walls of isolation giving way to a collective embrace. But what if it doesn't work? Sarah whispered, doubt creeping back. Even if just one heart finds comfort, it's worth it, Betty reassured her. And you won't be alone. We'll all stand with you. Tears filled Sarah's eyes, crystallizing her hope. I can do this. Mark smiled, feeling the turning tides buoy his spirit. Yes, we can do this together. We're forming a chain of support. We're neighbors, we need to lift each other up. As they began to gather ideas, the energy surged between them. How they would create an event was just the beginning, a celebration of life, loss, and the stories they carried. As the night deepened, the weight of shared vulnerabilities began to lift when laughter and plans filled the air. Not only were they creating a moment for Sarah, but they were also weaving their hearts together, the very essence of community. As they spoke passionately, Mark felt lightness begin to settle over him. This was where change took root. With the scent of hope now evident all around them, Mark knew the true power of their endeavors lay in the connections they formed. They were stepping into new realms of understanding, fueled by fortitude, friendship, and the laughter echoing in the old diner that would soon become a beacon of solace. But as they wrapped up their planning, Mark remembered the original purpose. Would they truly unite the town? Could they elicit participation beyond their circle? With that burning question sitting in his heart, he spoke, his voice steady. Let us open the invitations wide. Everyone deserves a voice, and together we'll build a canvas that colors our community spirit brighter than ever. The energy was electric. As they prepared to leave with their newfound purpose, Mark felt an overwhelming sense of unity wash over him, a collective heartbeat resonating through their stories as they leaped forward into this new world they had started to create. Let us meet again tomorrow at Jan S, make it official. He called out, his excitement wrapped around them like a warm blanket. As they dispersed, Mark reflected on how this night had shifted everything. They were no longer just a collection of individuals navigating their pain, they had transformed into a community committed to lifting each other, healing wounds together. But still, the shadows of doubt lingered. Could they pull everyone in? Would they silence fear with their united voice? As he stepped outside, the night sky filled with stars, he felt a flicker of courage swell within him. The journey had just begun, but he knew through every obstacle and triumph they would be there for one another. This was what community looked like. United in vulnerability, lifting each other up, they could sprinkle hope throughout their little Midwestern town, an incredible journey awaiting beyond every door. As they took their first steps toward this new chapter, the threads of their stories intertwining, they were ready to face whatever came next. Now was the moment to connect with those who hadn't yet joined them, time to extend the hand of friendship even further. Would they find their way into the light together? Only time would tell. But with hearts alight and voices ready to be heard, a sea of transformation swept through their small town, and Mark knew it was just the beginning. Now it's time for you to take action. Don't let this moment pass. You need to subscribe now to catch the next incredible stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like right now to fuel the algorithm. Your support means everything. Comment below and share your feelings and reactions about this heartfelt ending. Let us engage and connect. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need this transformation in their lives. Your support truly matters. Together, let us build a community of hope.